Hello trumpet players, this is video number 3 in our trumpet listening series. In this video we're going to talk about how to listen. Let's start this video off with another story from my past. You know, for the first 2/3 of my adult life, I lived well beneath the poverty line, and we didn't ever do food stamps or anything like that. No government assistance stuff. I didn't believe in that stuff. I still don't believe in that stuff. I'm not saying I don't believe others should use it. I don't believe in it for me. I'm not being judgmental. But the point is, I learned how to live on an extremely limited budget. I think most people, if they saw how I lived, they would be shocked. Not shocked by like the conditions, shocked at how can you have that kind of life with such little money. But it comes to this kind of thing, what I'm going to share with you right now. CDs, when they first came out, were as much as 25 bucks each. The cheapest you could find them were 15. So that was a huge expense for somebody like me. A huge expense. That wasn't just something I could like casually just buy. So when I bought these CDs, I felt like I had almost a duty, an obligation to listen to them, right? And so you see what I mean? I mean, it's so easy to buy recordings that you think you're going to like. Listen to them a couple times, and then they go into the shelf and sit there. I didn't want that. So this is the kind of thing we're going to talk about now, and you'll see how it applies later, because it doesn't apply now. We live in a streaming world. You can listen to whatever you want to listen to. But there's still value in this story, okay? The first thing I did to make sure that I got my money's worth out of those recordings was to make sure that I listened to them in order. This may sound funny to you. Now, this is only a fraction of my CD collection, but I would have it set up sort of like this. You can see it behind me. These are the CDs I have set out for my students. We don't even do that anymore, but that's the way I was teaching before streaming became such a big thing. I would issue CDs to my students, and then they would bring them back the next week. So that's why these are up here. I take all my CDs and put them on the computer and usually listen to them on the computer. So most of my CDs are up in the attic. But anyway, so the point is that I did used to have them before we had the ability to put them on computers. Before I had CDs long before I had computer, right? So I would have them stored in alphabetical order. The classical ones would be alphabetical by either artist or composer. The jazz ones would be alphabetical by the artist, and then if there were more than one, alphabetical by the title. And I would listen to them because this is serious stuff. When I say listening is more important than practicing, I'm telling you this is serious. Listening is not just for my pleasure. And in fact, I'm going to say this outright right now. There were times when I did listen for pleasure. I still listen for pleasure. Hey, that's a song I want to hear. Turn it on, listen to it. That doesn't count towards my listening. I hope that makes sense. There are times when I ask the students, are you listening? And I think they misunderstand it sometimes. Because, yes, they're listening to music for fun. That's not what we're talking about. When we say listening is more important than practicing, we're not saying that you listening for fun is more important than practicing. No. So anyway, this was it all started for me in the fact that these things were so expensive. And in fact, some of the best CDs I ever had, I mean, in the beginning, the really, really good ones were as much as $40 when I didn't have $40 to spend. So I would buy these and listen to them in order. And I had a system so you can, back in those days, I would have the CD I'm listening to, I'd take it out, and I'd take the case and set it sideways so that it would mark where I am. And I would listen to at least a CD a day, as many as 3 or 4 CDs in a single day. Listen to it, move on. If there's something I want to hear again, yes, I'll go back and play it again, and back and play it again, and back and play it again. But I treated every CD equally in terms of putting it in the order. I listened to all of it, and I think part of the reason why I am the way I am as a musician is because of the way I listened. Making sure to hit every CD in the cycle. How many times did I get through the cycle? Of course, the cycle gets slower as you get more CDs. I think I have, like I said, now they're all in the attic. It's hard to keep track of how many are there. I think I have between 600 and 1,000 CDs, or somewhere around there. Of course, I'm still buying CDs now, by the way. I don't buy as ambitiously as I used to, because we've got all that streaming stuff, and the streaming has changed everything. But like I said, because I was listening to every CD to get my money's worth, it also had an impact on my understanding of the music. And that was an important part of my development, and something of value that I want to pass on to my students and pass on to you. Don't just listen to the stuff you enjoy, please. Now I'm going to say it one more time, there is time in your life to listen to for pleasure. Me personally, I never counted that as my official listening time. Now, how does that old story apply to this video where I'm telling you how to listen? I think you should have a cycle of artists that you shift through. If you're working on developing your ear, developing your sense of the musical culture, you should, today I think if it's not the CDs, I'm doing YouTube. And yes, I'll sit and listen to like 2 or 3 days worth of music from the same artist before I move on to the next artist. Now, I haven't done that recently because I've been working on a composition. I'll tell you about that at the end of the video. But yes, that's how I handle this. Or if it's not necessarily by artist, I might go according to a tune that I'm listening to, right? So I'll listen to different albums that have that tune. And by the way, when I'm listening on YouTube, and we're going to talk more about the streaming stuff and YouTube in other videos, In fact, I'm going to go as far as to say that all of the videos from this one onward, we're doing 8 of these videos. All of the videos after this, for the most part, address this question: how do you listen? Okay? I'm just giving you a brief outline right now of what you should be shooting for, and I believe you should be consistent in coming back around. And by the way, and this is something that maybe I haven't spoken much about. In fact, now that I'm thinking about it, I haven't talked about this at all in the videos. I teach this, what I call the art of accumulative practice, and I have talked about that, but what I haven't spoken about is the rotation stuff. And that's all I'm going to call it for now. My students know what I'm talking about. We have rotations. And this rotation of the listening, I think, is just as important as the rotation of the practicing. You should be rotating through. If you want to play classical and jazz, you should be having your listening time split between classical and jazz. If you want other genres. Now, I don't think necessarily. So, like, I've played a lot of salsa in my career, and I do listen to salsa, right? Whatever it is we talked about this already. Whatever it is you want to be good at, you should be listening to. And I have salsa CDs that are in my rotation that I listen to. However, I don't listen to them as often because that's not. So you can give something less weight or more weight. But you want to be, the point here is to say that you should be systematic about it. If you're not systematic, you're gonna favor stuff. Now, is there anything wrong with favoring? I think that comes down to what kind of musician you want to be. I think people who are more systematic in their listening will tend to be better all-round players. People who allow themselves to only listen to what they enjoy will have things that they're good at and things that they're not good at. And I know everybody has that, but I mean, we're talking exaggerated. Like, you're going to have great sound, terrible sight reading or whatever, right? I think that the listening has that much of an impact. So when we talk about having structure in your listening, this is what we're talking about. Be organized about it. Don't just put on whatever you feel like putting on. Because first of all, you're not going to listen to all the stuff that you need to listen to if you do it that way. So what you want to do is write down what you need. Write down everything that you need. You need to hear some. If you're a classical player, you need to hear what a great classical tone sounds like. You need to hear the styles. You know, I remember the first time I heard some Baroque music with St. Martin in the Fields Orchestra, and I was just knocked out by their trills. And I saturated my ears in that, listening to those trills, listening to those trills, listening to those trills. And now I feel like when I'm playing Renaissance or Baroque music, that I've got a little bit better understanding of the ornaments than what most people would if they had played as little of that stuff as I do. I hope that makes sense. So yes, all that kind of, whatever it is that you need, be systematic about keeping that in your musical diet, so to speak. Be systematic. And what do we mean by systematic? That's the next thing we got to say, is write it down. Write it down. Now, here's how this can work with YouTube. I'm just going to use YouTube as an example. YouTube has streaming. I think the same concept will work for Spotify or Apple Music or any of those other ones, right? You make a set list or playlist, whatever you want to call it, and you have, what you do is you make different playlists of your different needs. Let's say you need to hear what a great trumpet sounds like. Well, you have a set list, a playlist of trumpet players with great trumpet sound. Then you have something great change playing or great swing feel. Whatever it is you're trying to incorporate into your musical diet, have a playlist for it. And scour the internet for that recording that you need to be listening to. Then you start rotating through your playlist. Listen to everything on this playlist. And do it in order. And write it down. See, these are the things that matter. I've been working with students all these years, telling them about this kind of organizational stuff. And a lot of them don't pull it off. They can, they're capable. They don't pull it off because they refuse to write anything down. The truth is, after a while, you forget what you were doing. And you end up starting over or guessing where you were last time and stuff like that. So you have to write it down. You have to keep a log of what your practicing was. And yes, I know that makes it just a little bit less fun. And I'm going to emphasize again, we're not doing this for fun. We're doing this so you can be a better player. So when I talk about how to listen, that's what I'm talking about. Be structured, be organized, write it down. So that you cover all the stuff you need to hear. Let's say hypothetically you have 5 playlists with 5 types of music that you need to hear. Or maybe you have a playlist for artists. You can do it that way too, by the way. You can say if you, I highly encourage that for jazz, right? If you're trying to be a jazz player, and when I say jazz player, I always mean someone who improvises. I can barely call someone who just plays the parts a jazz player. That's not how my mind works, okay? If all you do is play big band parts, you're not really a jazz player. I guess that sounds kind of offensive, but I'm speaking from a cultural perspective. We don't call people who read the parts jazz players. It's the guys who improvise. That's what we call jazz player. And if that's what you're trying to do, then I strongly recommend that instead of having playlists of those different aspects, you should have a playlist for different artists. And those artists, by the way, should be the greats. If you're going to be a jazz player, listen to the greats. Put all your Clifford Brown in this one. Put all your Lee Morgan in this one. Put all your Freddie Hubbard in this one. Then exhaust it. Listen to the whole thing. Then when you move on from there, go to the next artist alphabetically until you listen to all of that artist. And I promise you, if you do it this way, your listening will be more meaningful. It will be more beneficial. Now, there are a number of ways you can be organized. There's a number of ways that you can be write this stuff down. In this video, I'm basically just encouraging you to do so. Don't just listen to what you want to listen to. Be organized about it. Now, I told you that I have this new thing I've been doing. See, I've been writing a big band chart. And I have a new vehicle that for the first time in my life, great stereo system. So I can put a thumb drive in there. So I've taken all of my big band recordings and put them on that thumb drive. So this is a little different from what I'm telling you because I'm at a place in my life where I want to saturate my ears in just big band. Now I finished the chart and I'm moving on. I'm not doing this now. Okay? I finished the chart, but for 6 weeks, all I had in my thumb drive was this big band stuff. And I put it on random, and it would just pick big band things. Now, I had big band stuff on there going all the way back to the 20s. Not the 20s. It's the 40s, but songs from the 20s. That's what it was. 1940s all the way up to the big fat band stuff. And so putting it on random meant that I was getting different eras. So I got Dizzy Gillespie one moment, and then Clyde McCoy, whatever that guy's name, the one that did Sugar Blues, that would be next. And I'm like, oh, that's like culture shock like that, right? Then we would have Bob Mincer Big Band, right? And then go from there to there's a big band album that Tom Harrell did, and that came up. So yes, I saturated myself in those sounds so that when I'm writing the big band chart, that sound is fresh in my head. So yeah, so that chart's done, and now I'm gonna do it. I'll still use in the car. I'm gonna still use this approach, but I'm gonna erase all the big band stuff and whatever it is, I haven't decided yet. Whatever the next thing I'm gonna focus my car listening to, listening on, whatever I decide that is, I'm gonna put that on the thumb drive, put it in there. Now, one of the nice things about the random feature is that you can be driving and the song comes on, and you can play that game that they used to have in the back of the Downbeat magazine. You say to yourself, who is this? What's the tune? And what recording is it on? So you think. So you listen for a while, and even if you don't recognize it immediately, you can start figuring out who the musicians are by the way they sound. I've done that with just jazz in general. And it's amazing. After a while, you get to where you hear that sound, and it's like, I know who that is. Now, I promise you, you're not going to get that if you're not systematic about it. You might get it with some players, but you won't get that with more of a broad. And I think that's valuable. I'm not saying it's important. Right? I'm not saying if you don't do that, you'll never be good. I never said that. I'm not saying that. But who wouldn't want to do what's best? Why not do this in a way that's going to be even better than just trying to listen to whatever you feel like listening to? Right? So yes, it's nice to put the random thing on and try to test yourself. Who is this? What tune is this? If it is a tune that you don't recognize, are the changes based on a standard? And if it sounds like the changes sound familiar, what tune were the changes based on? That's a wonderful way to listen. Wonderful way to listen. All right. So that's what I have for you on this video, is that your listening really should be organized. If it's not organized, then you're not getting the best out of it that you could possibly get. I hope that makes sense. Okay, so if you have any questions, ask below, or you can join us on the kind of sort of weekly Trumpet Q and A. That's Trumpet Question and Answer. We have a live stream session almost every week. And the guys actually really do enjoy hanging out So if you have any questions about this or anything else for that matter, you can join us on Fridays. Other than that, God bless you, and we'll see you on the next video. Thanks for hanging out.